Now, the rand fell about 3% against major currencies on Thursday afternoon. This as the markets digested the possible resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa after the Section 89 panel found that Ramaphosa may have contravened the constitution and anti-corruption laws with his dealings at Phala Phala Game Farm. I'm now joined by Jimmy Moyaha, independent analyst. Jimmy, appreciate your time this afternoon. The rand took a bit of a knock. Walk us through how things ended. Certainly the markets ended at close of business on Friday.
Good afternoon, Hugo. Good afternoon to our viewers. So markets by Friday had gone through sort of 2 days of uncertainty, and by Friday we're sort of looking for some level of stability. We saw that our local bourse, the top 40, finished Friday down about 0.9%. The all share was down also about 0.9%. We saw that financials were up about 0.8% on Friday, but they were down on the Thursday before that. So off the back of the Phala Phala report coming out on Wednesday, of course, we did see on Friday that minings and metals were down about 3.1%, and resources were down about 2.6% on the Friday. So I think what we saw, the report was released on the Wednesday, some movements happened the Thursday, and then by the Friday, markets were still looking for direction because there was different messaging that was sent out on Friday to Thursday as to whether or not the president would be remaining in his position.
Now, give us a general perspective of the impact of this on the economy as a whole. I mean, we obviously understand that the rand lost almost $1 at some point, but the overall economy.
Yes, I mean, it has significant impact on a lot of areas of the economy. If you look at things around some things that have been in the news recently being the fuel prices. The fuel prices are going to be driven by the exchange rate, which if the rand is weaker is going to cost even more for us to import fuel or import oil for the fuel that we do provide for citizens, which is going to in turn increase the fuel price. Something else that we would need to be looking at when looking at the exchange rate is the higher the rand goes or the weaker the rand sits, the tighter the Reserve Bank has in terms of policy on their side of things as well. One of their mandates is to protect the value of the rand, and so a weakening rand is going to force the Reserve Bank to take significant steps to aim to protect that, alongside things around inflationary pressures that a weaker rand does create, which will then in turn increase interest rates in the long term, and the Reserve Bank will have no choice but to hike interest rates. So it really has a ripple effect on a large number of things. And although we didn't necessarily see such a significant move happen on the Wednesday when the report was actually released, we did see that there was significant movement within the markets and significant uncertainty within the markets when there were rumors that the president was stepping down. Now, the markets, along with the rand, are not necessarily pegged to President Ramaphosa directly, but what we're seeing there is the overall risk that's being priced in, and the risk assessment that then comes in from markets is to say that if there is a change in power and a change in leadership, how will that change affect the fiscal policy and the fiscal stance of the country? How will that affect things like the portfolio of national treasury? What will that mean? Will we get a new finance minister? Will there be a change in rhetoric and policy in that respect? And that will have its ripple effects on the market. And that is what the market was pricing in on Thursday. That is the fear and the sentiment that the market was looking at, is to say, if there is a possibility that there is a change in leadership at this particular juncture, one, ahead of the elective conference in December, and two, ahead of the 2024 national elections, what does that mean for South African markets? We already know that markets have been under pressure both locally and internationally, and we know that global growth forecasts are not looking good. We know the IMF has reported weaker forecasts, the World Bank has reported weaker forecasts, the Institute of International Finance has also reported that they only expect that the global economy will increase by about 1.2% next year, and a large driving factor of that will be China. So with all of the global macro factors in play, markets on Thursday were looking at the South African picture and saying, how does the leadership instability or the change or potential change in leadership affect the risk that we associate with an emerging market like South Africa?
So if we call that movement or losses a measure of volatility, can we expect more, particularly with the conversations that are happening around the NWC, which is meeting today, the NEC tomorrow, Parliament debating the Phala Phala report on Tuesday?
We definitely can. And we saw that leading up to the Phala report being released on Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, and up to about Wednesday morning, the rand had strengthened about 1% against the dollar. By the time the report was released, it had lost that percent. And the next day, when the rumors of the president's resignation or impending resignation hit the market, the rand against the dollar lost about 4.6% at one stage. It finished down about 2.3%, but it at one stage was double that in terms of losses. So we can expect volatility in the times of uncertainty right now around the leadership of the country and what might be happening with the meetings that are coming up. We do know, of course, that, looking ahead to the the ANC elective conference, which is around the 16th of December, we had anticipated that the rand might be showing signs of strength leading up to that. We were below the 17 rand level critically. We were sitting at about 16 rand 90. We were heading towards 16 rand 50. But following the news of the Phala report and the subsequent news that have hit the media since, we're sitting at about 17 rand 50. The danger is if the news isn't positive, or if there isn't some measure of stability going into the elective conference, that the market could start to price in a lot of risk sentiment around that, and we could see the rand head back towards that 18 rand level. We saw on Thursday that we stopped at about, I think, 17.97 were some highs that we got there. And if we go back above the 18 rand level, where we struggled to break below for quite some time, it could be a very precarious position for the rand against the dollar. We've already seen that against currencies like the euro and the pound. We are seeing sustained weakness. We're seeing that we're against the pound, for example, we're back above, I think it was back above 21 rand 50. Against the euro, we're heading closer towards 19 rand, a level we haven't seen since January of 2021, so in about 2 years. So there are serious concerns around the next few days in terms of a volatility perspective and what that means. I think especially if we look at the messaging that we need to see, or the messaging that we expect to see from the ANC. We saw on Thursday, as you had the discussion with Bukanya, that there was mixed messaging coming out of various structures and various members of the ANC, and that's what confused the market a lot, as to seeing that there wasn't necessarily a communicated or consolidated communication that spoke to one particular direction. If the markets are going to try and price in, particularly at times of uncertainty, as much risk as they can, and we could see that to the detriment of the rand if the news continues to be mixed message.
Jimmy Moyaha, independent analyst, appreciate your time this afternoon, giving us a market watch in light of that Phala report released on Wednesday. Now, correctional